The moment her joke echoed across the garden, every conversation died mid-sentence. Daniel felt the world tilt, as if the sun itself had dimmed in shame. Emily's laugh, sharp, careless, wine-soaked, cut deeper than any insult he'd ever faced. She hadn't just embarrassed him, she'd compared him to the one person he'd spent his entire life trying not to compete with, his brother. Faces around the cookout turned away, pretending not to hear what everyone definitely heard. And as Daniel's heart pounded in his ears, he understood one thing clearly. This wasn't a joke. Something had broken, and it wouldn't heal quietly. The summer sun hung low over the garden, casting warm gold across the long wooden tables that stretched beneath the oak tree. The annual Hawthorne family cookout was always the same. Too many people, too much noise, and far too many opportunities for someone to slip a careless comment that would live in memory far longer than the food ever would. Daniel Hawthorne stood by the grill, steadying his hands as he flipped a row of sizzling burgers. He wasn't nervous about cooking. He was nervous about everything else. His family, loud, competitive, judgmental, had a way of making him feel like he existed on the margins of his own life. And today, with his wife, Emily fluttering around the garden in a bright sundress and her favorite oversized sunglasses, he felt that ache more sharply than usual. His older brother Nathan arrived late as always. Tall, athletic, confident in a way that seemed effortless. He strode across the lawn to a chorus of greetings and playful teasing. Daniel watched him for a moment, jaw tight, before turning back to the grill. "Danny, relax," Emily had told him earlier. "It's just family. You worry too much." He wished she meant it. He wished she still looked at him the way she used to. By the time the food was ready, the drinks were flowing freely. The older cousins argued about football. Their children chased each other with water pistols. And someone had connected a speaker that played nostalgic 2000s music. Emily, seated between her, sister-in-law and one of Nathan's ex-girlfriends, who somehow was still invited to every family event, was laughing far too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. She'd had 2 glasses of rosé already, and when Emily drank, she became bolder, louder, careless. Daniel tried to focus on slicing the brisket instead of the rising pitch of her laughter. Then someone called across the table, "Emily, you've been married to Danny for 5 years now. Tell the truth. What's the real secret? How do you two keep the spark alive?" She should have brushed it off. She could have made a joke about communication, or patience, or Daniel's terrible snoring. Anything safe, harmless. But Emily leaned back in her chair, swirling the last of her wine, and grinned wickedly. "Oh, trust me," she said loudly enough for the whole table to hear. "If I wanted passion, I'd have married Nathan." The laughter dropped instantly, replaced by a stunned silence broken only by the hum of the speaker and the clink of a dropped fork. Nathan choked mid-sip. Daniel froze. Emily wasn't done. "I'm just saying," she added with a shrug. "My husband can't exactly compete. In many ways." Her meaning hit the table like a slap. Daniel felt the heat leave his face, replaced by a cold ache in his chest. His fingers trembled around the knife. People shifted uncomfortably, staring at plates, pretending they didn't hear what everyone had clearly heard. The humiliation was complete, and the night had only begun. The silence after Emily's joke settled like dust, slow, suffocating, impossible to ignore. It clung to Daniel's skin, crawled into his ears, and pressed against the back of his throat. For a moment he simply couldn't move. His hands rested frozen on the cutting board, knife hovering above a half-sliced brisket as though even the food was afraid to be touched. Across the table Emily blinked, as if only just realizing what she'd said. Her smile faltered, but she didn't take it back. She didn't apologize. She simply looked away, swirling her wine again as if she'd dropped nothing more than a harmless tease. Nathan shifted uncomfortably, rubbing the back of his neck. Come on," he murmured, voice low, embarrassed on Daniel's behalf. "That's not." But she waved her hand casually. "It's just a joke. Relax. Everyone's so sensitive today." Everyone knew it wasn't just a joke. Daniel set down the knife carefully, too carefully, like someone placing a bomb back onto its shelf. He inhaled slowly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Emily," he said quietly, "that wasn't funny." Her sunglasses hid her eyes. "Maybe that was intentional." "Well, maybe you shouldn't take everything so personally," she muttered. A few chairs scraped as people shifted farther away, as though the tension were contagious. Cousins gathered plates, whispering excuses about checking on the children. His mother pretended to be busy arranging napkins. His father cleared his throat, clearly on the verge of saying something, then thought better of it. Nathan stepped closer to Daniel. "Mate, I didn't know she'd say something like that." he whispered. Daniel forced a tight smile. It's fine. It wasn't fine. Every muscle in his body was wound tight, buzzing with humiliation. The worst part wasn't even the joke. It was that Emily had said it so easily, comfortably, as though she'd thought it before, and believed it. He walked away from the grill before his emotions betrayed him, slipping into the quieter part of the garden where the lanterns hadn't yet been lit. The sun was giving its final breath of warmth, and shadows stretched long across the grass, like fingers pulling him away from the world. He sat on the edge of an old wooden bench. Behind him, the giggles and whispers of family resumed, soft and cautious at first, then gradually louder. They weren't laughing at the joke. They were laughing because they didn't know what else to do. A moment later, Nathan followed and sat beside him. Neither spoke. It wasn't necessary. Daniel stared at the last sliver of sunset bleeding into the horizon. "Do you think she meant it?" he asked finally, voice barely above a breath. Nathan didn't answer right away. His hesitation was answer enough. "I think she was careless," he said gently. "And I think she hurt you more than she realized." Daniel swallowed hard. Or maybe she realized exactly what she was doing. Nathan looked down, and for the first time in years, Daniel saw pity in his. When Daniel returned to the cookout area, the atmosphere had shifted into that unnatural cheerfulness people used to cover discomfort. A few cousins forced smiles. His mother asked if anyone wanted more lemonade, and somebody turned up the music just a little too loud, as if noise could drown out what everyone wished they hadn't heard. Emily was still at the table, now fiddling with her necklace, her wine glass empty. She looked smaller somehow, though she tried to hide it behind a stiff posture. When she noticed Daniel approaching, she straightened in her chair, preparing for one of two things, reconciliation or confrontation. Daniel didn't offer either. He simply picked up a large serving bowl and began clearing plates. His silence hurt more than words could. "Danny, sweetheart," his mother said gently, "you don't have to." "It's fine," he replied, his polite tone like glass. "I want to help." Emily stood abruptly. "Daniel, can we talk?" He didn't look at her. "Now isn't really the time." She flinched as though he'd slapped her. Nathan's wife, Claire, placed a cautious hand on Emily's arm. "Maybe let him breathe for a bit." Emily pulled away. "I didn't do anything wrong," she whispered sharply, more to herself than anyone else. But her voice carried. Daniel pretended not to hear. He took the dishes into the kitchen through the open sliding door. Inside, the house was quieter, filled with the smell of barbecue and the hum of the ceiling fan. He set the bowl on the counter and gripped the edge tightly, eyes closing. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of trying, 5 years of believing they were a team. He had forgiven late nights, forgotten anniversaries, sharp words in arguments, and cold silences. But this, public humiliation, felt like something deeper, something intentional, something that revealed a truth she'd kept hidden. He ran a hand through his hair. He wasn't angry. Anger would have been easier. He was hurt. He was tired. He was scared of what the joke really meant. A moment later, small footsteps entered the kitchen. Emily slipped in, closing the door behind her. Her shoulders were tense, her expression tight with embarrassment and a hint of defensiveness. An expression he knew too well. "Daniel," she began quietly, "can we please talk?" He didn't answer immediately. He finished rinsing a plate, placed it in the rack, and only then turned around. "Why did you say that?" he asked softly, not accusing, not shouting, just genuinely asking. Her eyes darted away. "It was a joke. I was trying to be funny. People tease each other at family events all the time." "Not like that," he said. "Not about something that personal. Not about something that hurts." Emily swallowed hard. "I didn't think it would be a big deal." His chest tightened. "Not a big deal? You compared me to Nathan in front of everyone." She winced. "Well, people already compare you two," she said, instantly regretting it when she saw. Daniel stared at her, stunned, not by volume, not by anger, but by the sheer honesty hidden in her hesitant words. "I don't know." It hit harder than the joke itself, harder than the silence afterward, harder than every look of pity from his family. Emily seemed to shrink under the gravity of what she'd admitted. She wrapped her arms around herself, as though suddenly cold despite the warmth of the evening. Her voice trembled when she spoke again. "I didn't mean it like that," she whispered. I felt put on the spot. And everyone was joking and laughing and I panicked." "Panicked?" Daniel repeated softly. "Emily, you've never said anything like that before. Ever. You don't just invent a joke like that unless you've thought about it." Her breath hitched. "I shouldn't have said it." "That's not an answer," he said quietly. She turned away, leaning against the counter, rubbing her temples as though her own words were turning against her. Daniel, can we not do this in here? Everyone's outside. People are already talking. Because of what you said, he replied, his voice still frustratingly calm. So yes, Emily, we're doing this. She closed her eyes, shoulders trembling. You're making it worse. Daniel's heart thudded. I'm making it worse? Emily, you humiliated me. In front of your parents. My parents, my brother, everyone. She flinched. I know. Do you understand what that does to someone? His voice cracked, betraying the emotion he'd tried so hard to hold back. Do you have any idea how small I felt standing there? Her eyes softened, finally, genuinely. Daniel, I'm sorry. But it wasn't enough. Not now. Not after years of feeling second best to his own brother. Not after a lifetime of being told he wasn't as confident, not as charismatic, not as successful, not as outgoing. He'd spent years climbing out of that shadow. Emily's joke had dragged him right back under it. Do you mean that? He asked. She opened her mouth, but the door creaked open behind them, and Nathan stepped in, the awkwardness following him like a shadow. Sorry, Nathan murmured, eyes flicking between them. Everyone's asking if everything's all right. Emily stiffened. Daniel didn't answer. Nathan cleared his throat. Look, what Emily said, it wasn't right. But you two should talk privately, not let the whole family watch. Emily scoffed under her breath, irritated by Nathan involving himself. Daniel noticed. He also noticed how her expression softened only when looking at Nathan. That small detail twisted in his gut. I'm fine, Daniel said flatly. Nathan hesitated. Are you sure? Because I said I'm fine. Emily stepped forward, her voice suddenly sharp. Nathan, can you give us space? This is between me and Daniel. Nathan blinked, taken aback by her tone, then nodded and left. But the moment the door shut, Daniel caught the fleeting look in her eyes, guilt mixed with something close to fear. And Daniel's pulse thudded in his ears. The kitchen light flickered slightly. Or maybe it was just his vision tilting as Emily's words echoed inside him. There's more I need to tell you. He steadied himself against the counter. Emily, what does that mean? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers trembled as she twisted her wedding ring around and around, like she was trying to pull courage from the metal itself. Her breaths were shallow, each one sounding as if it might break on the way out. Please don't get angry, she whispered weakly. Daniel stiffened. That's not, Emily, what did you do? I didn't do anything, she insisted quickly. It's not like that, but I need to be honest. Those words had never sounded more threatening. Emily walked slowly across the kitchen, as though approaching a dangerous animal, except the danger was her own truth. She leaned against the sink, staring down at her hands. The kitchen, once full of warmth and chatter, felt like a courtroom now. Daniel wasn't sure if he was the judge, the jury, or the one being sentenced. You remember last year, she began, when we had that rough patch? When you were traveling a lot for work? Daniel tensed. He remembered it vividly. The long hours, the financial stress, the miscommunication. They'd argued more in those 6 months than in the rest of their marriage combined. But they'd survived it. Or so he thought. Yes, he said quietly. What about it? Emily's voice cracked. I didn't realize how lonely I'd become. And Nathan, he was around. He listened. He was supportive. He was just there when you weren't. Daniel's heart seemed to stop. No, he whispered. Emily, don't tell me. No, she said quickly, raising her hands. It wasn't like that. I swear on our marriage, Daniel, nothing happened. Nothing physical. Nothing crossed the line. But I talked to him a lot. About things I should have talked to you about. I told him things about our relationship, our arguments, our struggles. And over time, I got too comfortable confiding in him. Daniel's jaw tightened as the pieces slid together in a way he'd always prayed they wouldn't. You emotionally relied on my brother, he said slowly. Instead of on me. Emily's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean to. I didn't even notice it at first. But when things got better between us, I pulled away from him. I tried to fix it. I really did. Daniel's throat tightened painfully. Does he know? Does Nathan know you were relying on him like that? She hesitated. That hesitation said everything. Daniel stepped back, feeling the room spin. Emily, did you ever have feelings for him? No, she said immediately, but her voice shook. I mean, no. Not really. It wasn't like that. I admired him, that's all. I compared you two sometimes, and I know that's wrong. I know it is. But I never meant to hurt you. Daniel swallowed hard. So when you joked tonight, was that just a joke? Or Something you've been thinking for a long time? Emily's tears spilled over. She covered her mouth with trembling fingers. I don't know, she sobbed. I honestly don't know. Daniel felt something inside him crack, quietly, almost gracefully, like an old beam finally giving way under years of weight. For the first time since the cookout began, he wasn't embarrassed. He was heartbroken. Daniel didn't speak for a long time. Silence stretched between them like a ravine, wide, dark, and impossible to cross. Emily stood trembling by the sink, wiping her tears on the sleeve of her sundress, but Daniel barely saw her. His mind was unraveling, pulling apart every memory from the past 5 years and stitching them together in ways he wished he hadn't noticed before. The lingering glances, the comfortable banter, the way she laughed a little louder at Nathan's jokes, the way Nathan always seemed protective of her, even when he had no reason to be. Daniel had ignored all of it. He believed in trust so fiercely that he refused to entertain suspicion. But now, every dismissed moment came back sharpened. Daniel, Emily whispered, voice small as a child's, please say something. He finally looked up, and the hurt in his eyes made her flinch. I don't know what to say, he admitted. I don't know how to process what you just told me. She stepped closer. I didn't cheat. I swear that to you. I only ever loved you. Emily? His voice cracked. You just told me you don't know if you think less of me than Nathan. You don't know if you've had feelings for him. You don't know why you joked about him tonight. She shook her head desperately. I was drunk. I was stupid. You were honest, Daniel said quietly. Alcohol didn't invent those thoughts. It just freed them. Emily collapsed onto a chair, burying her face in her hands. I hate myself for this. I hate that I hurt you. You don't deserve it, Daniel. No, he said softly. I don't. She looked up at him then, eyes wide, filled with fear. The fear of consequences she thought she'd never face. Are you going to leave me? She whispered. A part of him wanted to answer. A part of him wanted to say yes because he didn't think he could ever look at her the same way again. But another part, the part that still remembered their wedding vows, their laughter, their shared dreams, hesitated. I don't know, he said honestly. Her shoulders collapsed. Please don't make decisions tonight. Please, we both need to calm down. Daniel didn't answer. He moved past her toward the door, needing air, needing distance. But when he opened the sliding door, he found Nathan standing just outside, pretending to admire the fairy lights strung across the fence. Nathan straightened immediately. Everything okay? Daniel didn't answer. His expression said enough. Emily rushed forward. Nathan, please, just go back to the others. But Nathan looked at Daniel, his face pale and tight with worry. Did you tell him? Emily froze. Daniel felt his chest seize. Tell me what? Emily shot Nathan a look of warning, desperate, pleading. But Nathan's eyes were full of guilt, and guilt never stayed silent for long. Emily, Daniel said, voice trembling, what else haven't you told me? She shook her head frantically. Nathan, please don't. Nathan looked at the ground, exhaling shakily. And when he spoke, Daniel felt the world tilt. Daniel, she wasn't the only one who got too attached. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Emily's face drained of color. Nathan wouldn't meet Daniel's eyes. And in that moment, Daniel finally understood. This wasn't just a crack in their marriage. It was an earthquake. Daniel stared at his brother, but the world around him seemed to fade. The garden lights blurred, the music became a distant hum, and the cool brush of evening air suddenly felt suffocating. Nathan's words echoed relentlessly. She wasn't the only one who got too attached. Emily pressed her palms to her cheeks, shaking her head as though she could undo what had just been spoken into existence. Nathan, she begged in a hoarse whisper, stop, please. You promised. You promised? Daniel repeated, his voice raw. Emily, what promise? Emily backed away from both of them, trembling violently. I didn't want this. I didn't want you to think. Think what? Daniel snapped. That both of you formed some secret emotional bond behind my back? That you were both comparing me to him while pretending everything was fine? Daniel! Nathan stepped forward, but Daniel raised a hand sharply. Don't, Daniel warned. Not yet. Nathan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. He looked younger, suddenly, smaller, not the confident older brother Daniel had grown up trying to catch up to. He looked guilty. We never meant for anything to happen, Nathan said quietly. And nothing did. I swear, but last year when you two were struggling, I stepped in too much. I thought I was helping. I told myself I was helping. Emily let out a broken sound, somewhere between a sob and a plea. Daniel stared at Nathan, fighting the urge to scream. Helping? Nathan, you're my brother. You should have been helping me, not comforting my wife behind my back. Nathan winced. I know, and I regret it. But you need to understand, Emily wasn't the only one who leaned in. I leaned in too. I should have stepped back. I should have drawn a line. I didn't. Emily covered her mouth, tears spilling down her cheeks. I told him not to say anything, Daniel. I told him that telling you would ruin everything. Ruin what? Daniel snapped. Your friendship? Your secret closeness? Your private bond that I wasn't part of? Emily flinched. No, our marriage. I didn't want to lose you. Daniel felt like he'd been punched. Hard. He stepped onto the patio, distancing himself from both of them. The night air hit him like cold water. He stared at the grass, beneath his shoes, trying to gather pieces of himself that were falling apart. So, he said slowly, while I was working overtime to fix our finances, while I was doing everything I could to keep our marriage stable, you were turning to him instead of me. Emily broke. She sobbed openly now. I didn't mean to replace you. I felt alone. And Nathan, stop saying his name, Daniel whispered. Please. Nathan took a shaky breath. Daniel, listen. I shouldn't have been there like that. I crossed emotional lines, I know. But I never wanted to hurt you. You're my brother. Then why did you let it happen? Daniel asked, voice trembling. Why didn't you step away? Nathan didn't answer. He didn't have an answer. The silence carved the truth into stone. Emily approached Daniel slowly, cautiously, like someone approaching a wounded animal. Daniel, please, look at me. He did. And she whispered the one sentence he never expected to hear. I ended it because I realized something I never wanted to admit. Daniel's breath caught. Ended what? Emily wiped her tears, and for the first time, her expression was painfully clear, transparent, stripped bare. My feelings, she confessed. For Nathan. The world stopped. Nathan shut his eyes. Daniel felt everything collapse inward. This wasn't just betrayal, it was devastation. Daniel didn't move. He didn't blink. He didn't breathe. Emily's confession hung in the night air. Too heavy, too sharp, too devastating to absorb all at once. My feelings. For Nathan. Nathan stood frozen behind her, his face drained of color. His eyes fixed on the ground as though the truth had physically forced his head down. The garden around them was still alive with distant chatter and laughter. But here, on the patio, time felt suspended, thick with heartbreak. Daniel finally managed to speak, though his voice was barely more than air. How long? Emily's lips parted, trembling. I don't know. It wasn't like I woke up wanting him. It happened slowly. Too slowly to notice until it was too late. Nathan winced. Daniel took a step back from them both. The fairy light strung across the fence flickered softly, casting uneven shadows on the ground, shadows that swayed and blurred, just like every truth he thought he knew. So the joke today, he said numbly. That wasn't just drunk humor. That was you letting something slip. Emily cried harder. I didn't mean it. I swear, Daniel. I never wanted any of this to come out. I thought it was behind me. Behind you? Daniel echoed. You think something like that goes behind someone? You think feelings like that just disappear because you decide they should? Nathan stepped forward cautiously. Daniel, please. I'm begging you. Listen to me. I never encouraged anything inappropriate. The moment I realized she was getting too attached, Daniel's laughter was hollow and painful. Nathan, you've been the star of the family since we were kids. People gravitate toward you without you even trying. Emily wasn't the first. Nathan's expression twisted. That's not fair. No, Daniel said quietly. What's not fair is being compared to you my whole life. By teachers, by our parents, by family friends, and now, finally, by my own wife. Emily reached toward him. Daniel, please don't do this. He stepped back, and the way she recoiled made his chest ache all over again. Don't touch me, he whispered. Emily's hands fell to her sides. Nathan closed his eyes tightly. Daniel, if you want to hit me, if you want to yell blame me, do it. I'll take it. Just don't let this destroy you. Daniel stared at him, really stared. My marriage is falling apart, he said softly. Because of something the two of you created together. And you think this is about blaming you? Nathan, this isn't something a punch can fix. Emily sobbed. Please, please don't go. Let me explain everything. Let me fix this. I'll do anything. Daniel shook his head. You can't fix something you broke this deeply. He turned toward the house, desperate for space, for breath, for anything that wasn't the sight of the two. People who had hurt him more than anyone ever had. "Daniel!" Emily cried, stumbling after him. "Don't walk away. Not like this." He paused at the door. For a moment he almost softened. Almost. Then he said without looking back, "I need time. And distance. From both of you." Emily collapsed onto the patio in tears. Nathan stood helplessly behind her, and Daniel walked inside, feeling the entire foundation of his life crumble beneath his feet. The days after the disastrous dinner became strangely quiet. Too quiet. Luke and I spoke only when absolutely necessary, our voices low, careful, as though even sound itself might trigger another explosion. The house felt heavier than usual, like every room carried the memory of his mother's angry footsteps and my silent humiliation. On Tuesday morning, as I sat at the kitchen table stirring tea I wasn't drinking, Luke finally broke the silence. "Mom's not answering my calls," he muttered, scrolling through his phone. "She's still furious. I didn't look up." "You shouldn't have called her that night," I said softly. "You knew she'd twist everything." He set the phone down. "I didn't twist anything. She hates that I take your side. She hates that. I love you more than I listen to her." Those words sat between us like a fragile glass. Beautiful, but easily shattered. "You shouldn't have to choose," I murmured. "But I do," he replied, pressing his palms against the table. "She's made me choose my entire life." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed again, this time with a message. His face drained of color. "What is it?" I asked, my voice tightening. He turned the screen toward me. A single message from his mother. "Bring your wife today, both of you. I'm done playing games." My heartbeat stuttered. The last thing I wanted was another confrontation. But something in the tone, cold, controlled, decisive, felt different. It wasn't rage anymore. It was something quieter and more dangerous. "We don't have to go," Luke said immediately, sensing my fear. But running would only let her spin the narrative further. "No," I whispered. "We'll go together." He reached across the table, taking my hand. His fingers were warm, steady, grounding. "Whatever happens, I'm with you." We arrived at her house just after noon. The curtains were drawn. The air around the porch felt tense, like the stillness before a storm. When she finally opened the door, she looked collected, too collected. Her lips were thin, her expression unreadable. "Come in," she said. Not a greeting, a command. We followed her into the living room, where she stood stiffly, hands clasped in front of her. "I thought about what happened," she began. "And I've decided something." Luke braced himself. I felt his hand subtly touch my back. Her eyes snapped toward me. "I don't trust you." I swallowed. "I know, but—" "Let me finish." Her voice sliced through mine. "You've done something to my son. You've made him turn against me. You've poisoned him." Luke stepped forward. "Mom, stop." But she ignored him completely, her gaze burning into me. "I'm giving you a choice," she said slowly. "Fix this marriage by taking responsibility for your disrespect, or leave my son's life and mine for good." My breath caught. Luke's outrage exploded. "Are you insane? She has nothing to apologize for." His mother's voice rose, trembling with something between fury and desperation. "Then she can walk out that door and never come back." The room spun. The choice wasn't mine to make. It was his. Luke turned to me, eyes full of anguish and decision. What he said next would change everything. Luke didn't look at his mother right away. He kept his eyes on me, searching, apologizing, promising. Then slowly, with a breath that sounded like it hurt to take, he turned toward her. "Mom," he said quietly, "I'm not choosing between you and her. I'm choosing what's right." Her face twisted. "What's right? You think she is what's right, after everything I've done for you?" "You've done a lot," he admitted. "But love isn't control. Respect isn't obedience. And you don't get to threaten my wife. Not anymore." The word wife hit her like a slap. She stared at him, stunned, her chest rising and falling too quickly. "So that's it? You're letting her destroy our family?" "No," he said firmly. "You're doing that." Silence. Heavy, suffocating. I took a small step forward. "I never wanted this," I said softly. "I never wanted to take him away from you. I just wanted us to coexist, to have peace." She blinked rapidly, as if the idea of peace from me was somehow offensive. "You humiliated me," she hissed. "You made him talk back to me. You made him disrespect me." "I didn't make him do anything," I replied, calm but trembling. "He defended me because he loves me. Because he's an adult. Because you can't make every decision for him forever." Her lips pressed together so tightly they turned white. "I should have known," she whispered. The moment he brought you here. The moment I saw the way he looked at you. You're taking him from me. Luke shook his head. No one is taking me from you. But you kept trying to take me from her. Her eyes flicked between us, panic creeping into her expression. For the first time since we'd arrived, she looked less like an enemy and more like a mother who didn't know how to hold on without smothering. Then she did something none of us expected. Her voice cracked. "You're all I have," she said. "After your father. After everything, you're all I have left." Luke's anger softened instantly. "Mom!" She stepped back, tears spilling. "I don't know how to share you," she admitted. "I don't know how to not be replaced." The confession hit the air like a fragile truth that had been buried too long. I swallowed hard. "You're not replaced," I whispered. "But you can't be the only person in his life. And I'm not your enemy." Her eyes dropped to the floor, as though she was seeing the truth but couldn't decide whether to accept it. Luke reached out slowly, touching her shoulder. "Mom, I need my marriage. I need my life with her. But I also want you in, if you'll let yourself be." She let out a shaky breath, staring at his hand, torn between pride and love. "I don't know how to change," she said quietly. "You don't have to know today," he replied. "Just try." For a long, fragile moment, no one spoke. Then she nodded, small, hesitant but real. A beginning. Not peace, not yet, but the first crack in the wall she had built around herself. And for the first time, I believed something might truly shift. But I didn't know then that the biggest shift, the one that would test all of us, was still coming. The drive home was quiet. Luke kept one hand on the wheel, the other lightly brushing mine, as if checking I was still there, still real. I stared out the window, watching the streetlights smear into long golden streaks across the windshield. I could feel the tension in his shoulders, the tightness that came from being caught between love for his mother and loyalty to me. "I don't know if she'll ever truly change," I said softly, breaking the silence. Luke exhaled slowly. "I know, but at least she admitted she's been wrong. That's a start." "A start doesn't erase what happened," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I can't just forget how she humiliated me, how she tried to manipulate both of us." He glanced at me, eyes heavy. "I don't expect you to. I know I've always said she's difficult, but this..." He shook his head. "This is beyond difficult." I looked at him and felt the weight of truth settle between us. 5 years of navigating his family. 5 years of pretending everything was manageable, now shattered in a single afternoon. And yet, despite it all, Luke didn't pull away. He held my hand, offered silent reassurance. When we got home, the house felt different, quieter, more fragile. Every sound, the ticking of the clock, the hum of the refrigerator, felt amplified, like the world was holding its breath with us. "I should call her," Luke said suddenly, voice hesitant. "Tell her I appreciate what she said today. Maybe even thank her for trying?" I shook my head. "Not yet. She's fragile. You saw her today. She admitted she's scared of losing you. That fear won't make her rational." He nodded slowly. "You're right. But I can't just ignore it either. I want to rebuild things with her. Somehow." I swallowed. "Rebuild, yes. But it's going to take time, and honesty, and boundaries." He squeezed my hand. "We'll do it together. That's what matters." The next morning, things felt even heavier. Luke left early for work, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The memory of Emily's confession and Nathan's presence at the cookout refused to leave my mind. I tried to focus on small tasks, laundry, dishes, but everything felt meaningless, colored by the tension that now defined our lives. Around midday, my phone buzzed. A message from Luke. "She called me last night. Wants to talk. I think she's trying." I stared at the screen, unsure how to feel. Relief, anxiety, dread, the mix of emotions was overwhelming. I typed back carefully. "Be cautious. Don't let her manipulate you. I'll support you, whatever happens." Minutes later, another buzz. "I know, but I can't avoid this forever. I have to face her. For both our sakes." I sat back, staring at the ceiling. The storm hadn't passed. It hadn't even started. But the first gust of wind had begun to blow, and we had no choice but to face it. Outside, the sky darkened as clouds gathered, reflecting the uncertainty in my own heart. And deep down, I knew the real confrontation, the one that would either destroy or finally heal our fragile family, was coming soon. The weekend came with a tense anticipation, a heaviness that settled over the house like a thick fog. Luke had insisted we visit his mother, not just to talk, but to try and rebuild some semblance of understanding. I wanted to refuse. I wanted to stay hidden in the safety of our home, avoiding another confrontation that could shatter what little trust remained. But Luke's resolve was unshakable. "She's reaching out, which is a start," he said as we drove. "We can't ignore that." I nodded silently, gripping his hand on the center console. My stomach churned with dread, a mix of anxiety and hope I didn't trust myself to feel. When we arrived, the house felt smaller than before. The curtains were drawn, the front door slightly ajar, as if the walls themselves were bracing for the tension inside. Luke's mother greeted us quietly, a fragile smile on her face, but her eyes told a story of fear, stubbornness, and lingering pride. "Come in," she said, voice soft. I've been thinking." We followed her into the living room, the same room where everything had escalated days before. She motioned to the chairs near the window, the soft afternoon light filtering in. We sat, a triangle of tension, Luke in the middle, me on one side, her on the other. "I know I hurt both of you," she began, voice breaking. "And I can't take back what I said, what I did. I only want to make things right." I watched her closely. Her words were careful, tentative, but there was sincerity there. For the first time, I didn't feel the manipulation lurking behind her tone. Luke reached for my hand under the table, a silent anchor. "We're listening," he said. She took a deep breath, looking down at her hands. I was scared. Scared of losing you, Luke. Scared of not being enough. Of not being seen as important in your life anymore. And in my fear, I lashed out. I humiliated. I drove a wedge between all of us. I felt a small crack in my own armor. This admission, this vulnerability, it was something I hadn't expected. "I understand now," she continued. "I've been selfish. And I need to change, not just for you, Luke, but for both of you. I want you to have your life together without me intruding, without fear, without manipulation." Luke's hand tightened around mine. "We need time," he said. "We can't erase the past in a conversation. But if you're serious, we can try." Her eyes filled with tears. "I am serious. I want to try." I exhaled slowly, a tension I didn't realize I was holding easing slightly. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't over, but it was something. And in that fragile, tentative space, I realized that healing, even small steps of it, was possible. The storm was still there, just beyond the window, but for the first time, we weren't standing alone in it. Outside, a sliver of sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the room with a gentle warmth. And for the first time in days, I felt a flicker of hope. The following weeks were a delicate dance, each step carefully measured, each word weighed before it left our mouths. Luke and I returned home from his mother's house that afternoon with a cautious optimism. But we both knew that real change wouldn't come from one conversation. Healing, if it came at all, would be slow. The first challenge came almost immediately. Emily, Luke's mother, reached out again, this time with small gestures. A thoughtful text, an invitation to coffee, a sincere apology for the events at the cookout. Luke read each message carefully before showing them to me, seeking my input, my feelings. It was exhausting, navigating the minefield of caution, but it also signaled her commitment. "She's trying," Luke said one evening as we sat on the couch, our hands intertwined. "I can feel it, and I want to meet her halfway. For us, for our life." I nodded, though a lump rose in my throat. "I see it too, but I need to protect myself. I can't forget the humiliation, the betrayal." "Not entirely." He squeezed my hand. "I know, and I don't want you to. But we can set boundaries. We can decide together what's okay and what's not." The next Saturday, we cautiously returned to Emily's home. The air was lighter than the last time we were there, though the tension lingered, like a shadow stretching across the floor. Emily greeted us warmly, genuinely, and the first smile that wasn't laced with anxiety reached her eyes. We spent the afternoon together, talking about mundane things first. Garden plans, old family photos, neighborhood gossip. The conversation was ordinary but grounding. Slowly, the tension eased. She laughed when Luke recounted a childhood mishap, and I found myself smiling too. It felt almost normal. Then, finally, she addressed the elephant in the room. "I know rebuilding trust will take time," she said softly. "I want you both to know I'm committed to changing, to letting you have your life without fear, without interference." Luke reached for her hand, and I saw her hesitate, a flicker of old insecurity, before returning the gesture. "Thank you," he said. "That means more than you know. But we'll take this slowly. No rush, no pressure." I breathed a small sigh of relief. Perhaps, finally, the family could begin to mend. But even in that moment, I remained wary. Healing wasn't linear. There would be setbacks. There would be reminders of the past, moments of doubt and fear. Yet for the first time in weeks, I felt a fragile sense of hope. We weren't perfect. Our family wasn't perfect. But we were trying. And sometimes, trying was enough. As we drove home that evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Luke reached over, resting his head briefly on my shoulder. I rested my hand on his knee. No words were needed. For the first time, the silence between us felt safe. It was a quiet, fragile victory. But it was a start. A first step toward forgiveness, toward trust, and toward the future we wanted to build together. The weeks that followed were a careful balancing act. Luke and I established boundaries with his mother, clear and firm, but delivered with compassion. We didn't avoid her, but we didn't allow the past to dictate every interaction either. Slowly, the sharp edges of anger softened into cautious understanding. Emily, his mother, continued to show signs of change. She asked questions about our life, our plans, our hopes, without the need to control or manipulate. She listened when Luke or I spoke, really listened, and when she stumbled, she apologized. Her humility was new yet genuine. One Sunday afternoon, we returned to the garden where the cookout had taken place months before. The oak tree stood tall, the sunlight filtered through the leaves, and the long wooden table waited, set for a small family lunch. There were no jokes meant to humiliate, no whispered comparisons, just food, conversation, and tentative laughter. As Luke poured lemonade, he glanced at me with a soft smile. "I think we're finally getting somewhere," he said. I nodded, letting myself hope. Slowly but yes. Emily approached, holding a tray of sandwiches. "I wanted to do something nice," she said, her voice steady. "I hope that's okay." "It is," I said, and meant it. She set the tray down, giving me a brief but sincere smile. There was no shame in it, no defensiveness, just acknowledgement, a sign that she was trying, and that maybe, just maybe, she could be trusted again. Nathan stayed on the sidelines, quietly helping with the kids and the dishes. He offered no words about the past, no reminders of his earlier mistakes. His presence was calm, unintrusive, a silent promise that whatever had happened before was behind us. As the afternoon passed, the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting everything in gold. Luke held my hand under the table, fingers intertwined. The past months of tension, heartbreak, and doubt were still there, lurking under the surface. But they no longer dominated us. When the meal was finished, Emily pulled me aside for a brief moment. "Thank you for being patient," she whispered. "I don't deserve it, but thank you." I nodded, allowing myself a small smile. "You're making an effort. That counts for something." She nodded, tears glinting in her eyes. "I just hope I can keep doing better." "You can," I said softly. "One day at a time." As we stepped back into the garden, Luke squeezed my hand, his expression a mixture of relief and love. "We're stronger than I thought," he murmured. I leaned into him, letting myself feel it, the quiet, unspoken bond that had survived the storms. The joke, the humiliation, the confessions, they were scars now. Reminders of pain, yes, but also of endurance. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that healing wasn't just possible, it was happening. Fragile, imperfect, and tentative, yes, but real. The sun finally dipped behind the horizon, casting long shadows across the garden. But in those shadows, there was warmth, there was hope, and there was the promise of a future built not on fear or comparison, but on honesty, trust, and the love that had weathered the storm. For now, that was enough.